All right then, let's get started, eh? Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. As I said, the 2017 Global Law Trial webinar. We have a couple of handouts that will be coming to you. One's already on. The game management guidelines should be attached for you to look at your leisure, and that includes all the trial laws, the amendments, etc., that we'll be talking about this evening, and also the video clips that we'll be watching tonight will be available later on in the week at the texasrugbyref.com website. Sometimes the videos don't play all that well, so in case you get bad quality, you can go onto our website www.texasrugbyref.com, and the videos will be up there later in the week for you to view, along with the PDF of this presentation, which is being recorded tonight. So you can go back over, have a listen, follow along with the PDF as well as the videos, and get your learn on that way if you want to. You'll notice that all the attendees here are in mute mode. So if you have a question during the presentation, use your little question box on your control panel, and I can answer those questions as we go along. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll spend about 10 minutes, if needed, with a bit of a Q&A as well for you all. So anyway, most of the people are signed in now, so let's get started, eh? What, why, and when? So World Rugby goes through a 4-year process that starts basically at the end of every World Cup, and they will sit down in their room in London somewhere and have a look at the current laws and run various law or closed law trials around the world. So the reviews that we're having a look at tonight, they've been in the works for quite some while in various closed trials around the world, like the Mitre 10 Cup in New Zealand last year, the America's Rugby Championship, the Pacific Nations, and I think the Armed Forces in the UK were also involved in trialling the different variations. So some people have said that it was Eddie Jones complaining after the England-Italy test match that got all these laws changed, but that's just not correct. So yeah, every 4 years there's a bit of a process after the World Cup, and this is where we're at right now. So the laws that we're going to go over tonight and review, they will be in effect for a period of 1 year, and then at the end of the year, World Rugby will sit down again in that room in London and make a decision on which ones they want to keep and which ones they will abandon and scrap. There's a couple of sets in trial. The first trial set came out, I believe, beginning of the year, January 1st. And we had the opportunity here in USA to be a part of that trial, but we decided not to because we were midway through a 15 season. But you may have seen them being played over the summer in the various comps, like the U20 World Cup, the Lions series, also use some of the earlier trials. And then the second set, obviously, which is we're talking about today as well, they came into effect on August 1st, 2017. Though we did delay the implementation of those for the sevens. If you were watching the sevens last week, I believe we were still using the older variations. So that's pretty much the what, why, and when. So here's some key points that we will be looking at tonight and that we want to take away with us. So all uncontested scrums must have 8 players. Teams have the option to kick to touch on a penalty that's awarded after time expires. Teams can choose the most advantageous penalty if there is more than one infringement during a phase of play. No kick after a penalty try. The touch law has been revised to have the plane of touch as the primary mark for where the ball has left the field of play. We'll go over that in a lot more detail later on. In all cases where a player is attempting to reach over the plane of touch to keep the ball in the field of play, that player must first start in the field of play. And again, we'll look into those a little bit more. We have worldrugby.org/news. If you go to this website, all the law trials, amendments, and updated definitions are all there for us to look at. All the videos that we will be looking at tonight are also straight from the World Rugby website. So heaps of info over there. A really great resource to go either send your players or as a coach go over and spend some time looking at the laws. Quite helpful. So few definitions have been changed. If you look in the law book, all the definitions hang out around the front of the book there, and this one is just a change in the definition of possession. So this happens when a player is carrying the ball or attempting to bring the ball under control, or the team has the ball in its control and it's on their side of the scrum or on their side of the ruck. What we're saying now is that that team is in possession. So we've seen this in rugby where a player might be juggling the ball and he gets tackled. There's always been a bit of a debate about if he's not holding on to the ball, is that foul play? Is that playing man without the ball? And then also it applies again, if a player is juggling the ball but doesn't have contact when he touches the line or something goes out, they are deemed to be in possession. And so it just makes it easier for us to adjudicate, and it clarifies that whole area, which is, can be a little bit tricky to get right. If you remember the D1A Red River final between LSU and Baylor, some of you might have seen the call or the not call for touch on the famous try where the Baylor player ran through everyone on the field, and was he in touch, wasn't he in touch, we weren't too sure. If you go back and watch that clip, under these this new definition, he would have been in touch. So yeah, anyway, it just clears it up, pretty straightforward. And here's the clip for you to watch.
Out first. Touch behind you, please. Yeah. So let it play. Line up. Reset.
Right, any questions on that definition? Pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll move on. Law 3, this one is about the number of players, and it's basically focuses on the scrum and the number of players that need to be involved in an uncontested scrum as a result of a sending off, temporary suspension or an injury. What this is saying is now we must have 8 players per side. Now the key word here is uncontested. This only applies to an uncontested scrum and not a normal scrum during the game. So if you're watching rugby from the Mitre 10 Cup this last week, you would have seen a few where a player was sent off and the scrum was 8 against 7, and that was because it was a contested scrum. So we can do that. So this change only applies to uncontested scrums. We want it to be 8 on 8. And the reasoning for this from World Rugby is basically to discourage teams from going to uncontested scrums. So that's pretty straightforward there. And we have a little video clip of a referee asking a player to come into the scrum to make it even. Very exciting.
8-man scrum, Mr. Play. Time on. Crouch. Bind. Set. Okay, play. Yeah, wait. Stay down still, 7. Good.
So that one's pretty straightforward. Uncontested scrum, we're going to go 8 on 8. Law 5, time, 5.7e. If a penalty is kicked into touch after time has elapsed without touching another player, the referee allows the throw-in to be taken and play continues until the next time the ball becomes dead. Now, we've seen this one over the summer, and we actually trialled this back during the Pro Rugby, if you remember. We saw it also in the Lions series where there was a little bit of confusion where the Lions kicked the ball out. I think they were ending the half and they had to have the line out in one of their warm-up games before they played the All Blacks. So it's pretty straightforward. At the end of the half, the ball must be tapped before the kick to touch. If a knock-on occurs or as the tap is being taken, time has expired and the half will end. So what we need to do here is make sure that if they want the half to end or the game to end, that the player first taps the ball, then kicks to touch, and not directly to touch. So we want to see them tap the ball, then they can kick it out. This, for referees that are on the webinar, this is a great time just to remind the players, hey, if you want to end the half or you want to end the game, just remind them that they must tap the ball first rather than have them kicking it out and then having the argument afterwards. So pretty easy to manage for us referees, this one, pretty straightforward. The reason World Rugby has made this change is to discourage teams from infringing in the dying moments of the game, which we've all seen. The All Blacks are great at doing this back in the day when, they're ahead by, a few points and they start pulling the game out by infringing close to their goal line. So this is meant to stop that sort of behaviour from happening. So again, pretty straightforward. Move on. We actually have some clips here, so right.
Hands away. Run away. Okay, not rolling. 6. Yeah, last play. If you lads, if you kick it to touch, we have a line out. If you tap and kick, it's the end of the game.
Excuse me for a moment.
That's half time. So tap first, eh? Make sure you tap. Ready?
So here, pretty straightforward here. Just what I explained earlier. We're going to ask the guys to tap the ball, kick it out. Yeah.
That's half time. So tap first, eh? Make sure you tap. Ready?
Any questions so far from the crowd? All good. Okay, we'll continue on. The next slide, I believe we're talking about advantage. So Law 8, advantage, 8.1a. When there are multiple penalty infringements by the same team, the referee may allow the captain of the non-offending team to choose the most advantageous of the penalty marks. Again, really straightforward. As a referee, we just need to be aware of where our advantages are, where the infringements were as we move along the field or down the field, so we can give an accurate position for them to choose from, and then give them their 4 options, the tap, the scrum, shot a goal, or a line or kick to touch. basically. So for referees, be aware of where your marks are, and we just offer up to the captain to choose the most advantageous. So again, another straightforward change, and we have a nice video here.
To Nicoli. Gets them on the front foot. The Cheetahs. Venter, left hand side. Mahoja.
That's right. Nice bang offside.
From an offside position where the Sharks, Queenie Westhuizen, making the tackle.
Double advantage.
Rule. Back into the traffic goes Raymond Rule.
Back.
Not enough advantage.
Two penalties, offside first and then not rolling. Option.
Penalty for the Cheetahs.
You can kiss. Of he's off daar so. Net hier. Ja, he's off. This one.
And you'll notice in this clip that Piper actually has his top tucked in completely, which is a very rare occasion, a rare occurrence on the field these days. But the reason we changed this law is to discourage repeat offending when advantages are already being played, and to reward teams against whom repeat offending has taken place. Again, pretty straightforward change. Shouldn't be no issues there. Law 9, method of scoring. So we've got a change here with the penalty tries. No need to have a shot at goal now. If a player would probably have scored a try, but for foul play by an opponent, a penalty try is awarded. No conversion is attempted. We just give them the 7 points and we move on. Really easy, this one. The reasoning behind it from World Rugby is basically to save a little bit of time on the clock by negating the need to kick for points. Probably a lot more important in the game of, or has a lot more impact in the game of sevens, where the 30 seconds, or the 10 seconds it takes to have a shot at goal, a team can run back down the field and score a try. However, it's for both 15s and 7s. Yeah, straightforward.
Again, the scrum is good from the Crusaders. They'll back themselves the whole way. Douglas, can he get control? It won't matter. It's a try. Under pressure. It's a penalty try. No shot. No conversion required. That's 7 points in the bag for the Crusaders. No shot. No shot.
Well, they had the middle on them before, and look at their grunt work. When you've got Barrett and Whitelock in the middle of the road, just pure grunt.
First penalty try awarded in New Zealand this season. And it goes to the Crusaders, more specifically to their scrum. Two massive scrums back-to-back, Tim.
Yeah, it was great work. As I said, they used it to great effect last season. And it's the sort of play that'll get you some momentum back into the game. They know they've got some pressure on them there. Interesting to know who it was he felt was responsible there, because they had a one.
Right, I think that's enough. We've seen that one. So up until this point, all the changes have been pretty straightforward. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to deal with the tackle. We'll start dealing with the tackle, the ruck. So on to Law 15. The tackle. So we have an amendment to the tackle here. The tackler must get up before playing the ball and then can only play from their side of the tackle gate. So this is going to get interesting for us in our first few outings this season, no doubt. Lots of penalties at the tackle. Over the last few years, we've allowed the tackler who has basically fulfilled their obligation in law to be able to play the ball from any direction. So they make the tackle, they release the player, they release the ball, and they get to their feet. They can have a good old crack at the ball from any angle, north, south, east, west. So this has changed, and now basically we're going to treat the tackler in the same way we would treat the tackle assist, which means they have to get to their feet, let go of the ball and the tackled player, the ball carrier, and come back around through the gate. Hopefully this will clean the tackle area up for us and make it easier for us to officiate. You know, but we'll have to wait and see. So.
Tener arriba, Arata. El pase para Leandro Leiva, le salió bien arriba la defensa.
Before we go on, can anyone tell me who the referee is in this video clip? He's got nice hair, but not really nice hair. So, anyone can tell me who the referee is?
Tener arriba, Arata. El pase para Leandro Leiva, le salió bien arriba la defensa. Puede contrarraquear bien el equipo italiano.
Tackler must go back around.
Pero hay penal.
Well, I've got a few answers coming my way. I don't know if I really want to
2 tries
say it out loud.
Japan in this.
But yes, that was the one, the only Weaver, second best referee in the country from what I've been told. Definitely the top 3. But anyway, here's another one. This is a nice clear one of the tackler. So we're going to watch the Japanese player. Oops, no we're not. Yes we are. Here we go.
Arriba, Arata.
Again, my bad.
El pase para Leandro Leiva, le salió bien arriba la defensa. Puede contrarraquear bien el equipo italiano.
Tackler must go back around.
Pero hay penal.
Yeah, so there, 13 blue was being penalised.
2 tries to Japan in this first half through the number 8. Tevita Tatafu. Samoa will be penalised, or rather Junior Japan will be penalised. Just about 30.
So yeah, earlier in the year, that would have been a fantastic play by, I believe, the number 6. And you know, maybe it's a shame that we've gone away from that. However, that is the way the cookie crumbles, and that person was getting penalised. So that's the new tackle. We're going to treat them like the assist tackle, clear up the tackle area, and we'll move on. So next up, obviously, we have the tackle. Law 16 is going to be the ruck. And again, we've amended the ruck laws here. A ruck commences when at least one player is on their feet over the ball, which is on the ground. We have a tackled player and the tackler. At this point, the offside line is created. So we'll have a read over that again. So basically what we're saying, we have a tackled player, we have the tackler, they're on the ground, the ball's also on the ground, and we have one player from either team over that, the tackled player and the tackler, and we have a ruck. And we have an offside line as well. So it's created the offside line with the ruck. A player on their feet may use their hands to pick the ball up as long as this is immediate. As soon as an opposition player arrives, no hands can be used. So this is going to create all sorts of fun for us to referee because our timing now is very, we have a very small window to allow people to play the ball. And yeah, we really need to work hard to get this right. So what they're saying about immediate is if the defending team, the jackler, comes over, if he's on the ball immediately, the ruck hasn't formed, he can have a poach of the ball. If the attacking team joins onto him and he's got possession of the ball, he's allowed to continue that contest. He can continue to play the ball as long as he doesn't lose possession of the ball. So that's key there. So the jackler for us as referees is the person that's going to be of most interest going forward into the full season. Making sure he gets to the ball, hands-on and has possession of the ball before contact from the attacking team. So we will have some videos of that. And then the other ruck offences, a player must not kick the ball out of a ruck. That's going to be a penalty kick now. If you watched Mitre 10 rugby from New Zealand last year, you would have seen players kicking and hacking at the ball, and it was really dangerous to have a big size 13 coming swinging at you. So World Rugby has changed that one up pretty quickly. So you can hook the ball backwards, but you can't kick the ball out of a ruck, and that would be a penalty kick if they do that. So let's have a look at some of these clips, and if you have questions, start typing them in and we'll get to them as soon as possible.
Over here. It's that man Scott Young taken by two with Wells tacklers inside the Wells half.
Advantage offside.
So let's watch that one again. So we'll pause it there. So we have our tackled player, we have our tackler, and they just left me. Our arriving player over the ball, and we had an offside line in the midfield from red. I believe number 8 was offside, number 6 possibly, and is penalised for that by the referee. Watch it one more time. Watch the midfield, the rucks form, the midfield's offside. This will be an important thing for the referee to be aware of. Now that the ruck forms very quickly, we will need to scan the back line a lot quicker as well. We don't have the luxury of sort of waiting around like we did last season. So
over here. It's that man Scott Young taken by two with Wells tacklers inside the Wells half.
Advantage offside.
okay.
Is in the league to kick it forward as this. Good chase coming up from Demasi. Makes the tackle. That's the other feature.
Advantage kicking the ball on the ruck.
So here you see the player kicking at the ball.
That's your mark, yeah.
And the reasoning for this, last year there was an amendment where we were told that we could not play the ball out of the hand of the halfback. I think this is sort of just a continuation of that law to bring some consistency to that area. As I mentioned earlier, it's dangerous play. People getting, a stray boot in the head or the breaking fingers. So now we're not allowing it, and it must be rucked back or during the counter ruck. So you see in the next clip, there's a nice counter ruck, and they ruck the ball back, hook the ball back rather.
Straight into that midfield. On the forward, the second row. Trying to set it back. There's great counter rucking though from England.
Yeah, he's fine.
And they.
So there, you clearly see that it's a hook backwards, and that works really well. So that's how we're going to adjudicate that moving forward. Keep an eye on those stray boots. If the ball comes flying out of a ruck, it's probably the old kicking scenarios happening. So another definition has been updated. The mark, to make a mark, a player must have one or both feet on or behind the player's 22 or that player's 22 metre line and catch the ball that has reached the plane of the 22 metre line. So basically what they're saying now is that we are getting consistency and adjudicating the touch line the same way as we're adjudicating the 22 metre line with the plane. the same way we're doing it with the goal line and the dead ball line. So the ball must pass the plane of the 22-metre line for it to be considered inside the 22-metre. And much like we're going to do with the goal line and also with the dead ball line. And we'll see that as we pull up a few more clips. The reason we're doing this is basically to simplify the law, because if you've sat down and read the touch law as it was last year, it's fairly complicated and it's a real head scratcher sometimes. So we've just simplified the law, and it also increases the ball and play time as well. So this is a bit wordy, but bear with me and we'll make our way through it. Touch. So if the ball is past the plane of touch when it is caught, then the catcher is not deemed to have taken the ball into touch. Touch law trials apply to the dead ball line and the touch and goal line, like I just talked about. So plane of touch is the key here. The application of the trial law is also in effect on the 22-metre line, which I just covered in the previous slide. If the ball has not passed the plane of touch when it is caught or picked up, then the catcher is deemed to have taken the ball into touch, regardless of whether the ball was in motion or stationary. If a player jumps from the playing area and knocks the ball back into the playing area, or if that player catches the ball and throws it back into the playing area before landing into touch, and I don't know where my slide's gone there. Excuse me, I'm missing some wordies. But anyway, I'll find that. We've got some videos, and I'll try to find the rest of that definition.
Sean Reedy, who's come a long way, hasn't he, in the last 12 months or so. Jackson, hoists it. It's on Abandonment, it's straight into touch. Claremont, always thinking laterally though, aren't they?
The first real unforced error that we've seen in open play. Then good awareness on the touchline. Yeah,
Okay, we'll watch those again.
Sean Reedy, who's come a long way, hasn't he, in the last 12 months or so. Jackson, hoists it. It's on Abandonment, it's straight into touch.
So the ball's past the plane of touch.
Claremont,
Therefore,
always thinking laterally though, aren't they?
it's deemed to be put in touch by the attacking team.
We've seen in open play. Then good
Pretty
awareness on the
close.
touchline. Yeah,
And our ARs are going to have to be on their toes and switched on.
it's taken back. Substitution, Marius. Your play took it out.
So again, a really tight call there for the AR. And maybe not the best example there, but the ball is still inside the field of play. It hasn't broken the plane of touch. And therefore, that player is deemed to have taken it into touch. And the same will apply on the 22-metre line. If this here was our 22-metre line, or our goal line, or our dead ball line, that's how that law is going to be applied for consistency.
Great call. It's the law change, mate.
Just to let you guys know, I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting to the questions. Every time I try to look at your questions, my screen is going blank. So what I'll try to do is go over them at the end of the webinar and answer the questions. there for you guys. In case you're wondering why I'm not answering you, I'm not ignoring you. Maybe I'm ignoring Joey, but not the rest of you guys.
Inati gets it back to where Ledger is, makes good purchase. Nice clearance. Has been battered and still in play from Knight.
So on this clip, the player's in the field of play. He's jumped from the field of play. Batted the ball back.
It's for Adam Knight. Oh, whoa, what has happened here? Fine. They're going to have a look. Did he stay in?
And here he's in the field of play. He's in the end goal. Great piece of work by the big fella. And they end up scoring a try. So as referees, we're going to have to work extremely hard to make sure we can get in line with the ball and in line with the 22-metre lines and the goal line to adjudicate this correctly, or at least to the best of our ability. So, you know, when you're thinking about the training you're going to do, put some sprints in there, and we should be right.
That same fate again.
Deep and into touch and skills from Aaron Smith.
So last year, that was would have been deemed out on the full and up to the halfway line for either a scrum or a line out. With the law change now, Aaron Smith has deemed to take that ball into touch.
That same fate again.
The ball's still inside the field of play, hasn't broken the plane.
Deep and into touch and skills from Aaron Smith. We can't tap from the halfway line. You're not the first person to try that this year. Garth April. His first.
And this is going to apply to all our lines. If this is the 22-metre line, that would apply. That was the goal line, or if that was the dead ball line, the same law. The player would have, the same law applies here. (19.1c) no gain in ground. If a player with one or both feet on or behind the 22-metre line picks up the ball which was outside the 22 or catches the ball in front of the 22-metre line and kicks it directly into touch from within the 22, then that player has taken the ball back inside the 22, so there's no gain in ground. And so we just talked about that. If it hasn't crossed a plane, then they're taking it back in. The same applies to the goal. Same applies to the dead ball and the goal line. If it hasn't crossed that plane, then that player has not. It's not in the 22. It's not in goal. That player is taking it back in.
Fine.
Right, so that's Law 19 covered. It's quite a big change. I would advise you to spend some time watching videos, going over this webinar again when I send it out in the PDF form, so you feel confident when you go out on the field in the next few weeks. Okay, I'm going to have a quick look over the questions there. Okay, let me hit some questions. I have Joey. Any issue with the tackler stepping over the tackled ball carrier and poaching from his side, or does he need to make an effort to go around the head, feet of the tackled player? So the tackler needs to get up to his feet, and he needs to go back and enter through the gate before he can contest for possession. So I think that's what you're asking. You're asking, can he step back over the tackled player, or does he have to leave? I guess he just has to be back on his side and through the gate. So yeah, I would have no issue there if he enters, if he steps back over the player and then re-enters, if I'm reading it correctly. Yes, and Victor, I assume you're talking about the Law 19, the touch laws, to expedite the game. I've got a question here from Glenn. If the player jumps and throws the ball back into play, is play still live? Glenn, yeah, great question. And yes, as long as that player jumps from the field of play and catches and throws the ball back in or taps the ball back in, play will continue. A lot like, I believe, your basketball laws or rules, whatever they're called over here. I'm not a great follower, but anyway, okay. Yes, very good, Glenn. He's cool. Joey Swatzel. Scott Green, you are the best referee I know. Well, thanks, Joey. It's very kind of you. Very kind of you. Got a question from John. How does play restart if a mark is called and the ball didn't cross the plane of the 22? Well, I would, as a referee, I would inform the player very quickly that play is still on and the mark is denied. So the language would probably be no mark, play on, or play on, no mark, however you want to do it, but there would be no restart because play would still be on. And I can see all sorts of drama unfolding when a fullback thinks he's got the mark, calls for it, and then gets nailed by a defending player. So that's a great question. So that one would, to me, would fall under management. You would make the decision very quickly that the ball was not inside the 22. You would say, play on, no mark. And hope the person calling the mark is able to defend himself and brace for impact correctly. Okay. Have another question here from Glenn. If he taps the ball while falling out of bounds and it moves forward, yes, I would say that's a knock on. Yep, knock on. So much like a liner has to go straight or back towards his goal line. So yeah, there would be a knock on, and the restart for that knock on would be the 15-metre line. Would be my call. And if I'm incorrect, please have someone correct me. But I would say that would be a knock on. If I tap the ball forward back into the field of play, and the restart would be a scrum at the 15-metre line. Okay, so that's all the questions so far. Keep them coming. Great questions. And we'll have a look at the scrum now. So there's been a few changes to the scrum. They're pretty straightforward. The referee no longer has to signal the scrum half to put the ball in. The scrum just needs to be square and steady before the scrum half does feed the ball. So this is a pre-game management issue that I will talk to my nines before the match, let them know that I no longer will give you a signal or tap. However, I need you to wait for the scrum to be square and steady. And as soon as the 9 goes down to put the ball in, he must put the ball in. He can't go down into that position to feed the scrum, then stand back up. So at the first scrum, I would probably manage my 9 and maybe blow up the scrum and have a reset and explain to the number 9, or re-explain to the 9 what you are looking for and what he has to do, what his obligations are. And if he continues to neglect that, I would free kick him. So no signal from the ref. Scrum half feeds the ball in the scrum square, and now we're allowing the scrum half to line up on his side of the scrum. So he can align his shoulder to the midline of the scrum, and pretty straightforward. Questions about that?
Fine. Set.
Down he goes, ball goes in. There's a little bit of a feeder as well. We will be looking at the 9s to feed the ball straight now that we've given them that slight advantage, because they can line up on their side of the midline. So it's no longer going to be acceptable for a 9 to line up on his side of the scrum and also put the ball back to the number 8. Again, we could probably manage a lot of this pre-match and before the first couple of scrums to remind the 9 that we want a straight feed, a credible feed, etc., etc. So we used this in the ARC competition earlier this year, the America's Rugby Championship. So what's it saying is once the ball is thrown in, once the ball touches the ground in the tunnel, any front row player may strike and try to win possession. And it's saying that we need someone to strike for the ball. So no longer can the ball just sit in the middle of the scrum and no one strike for it. So one player from the team who put the ball in must strike for the ball. If it's sitting in the middle and they're not striking for it, then you will free kick that team for not striking. So again, fairly straightforward changes here. And again, I would advise you to talk to the front row players at the beginning of the game. Make sure they understand that there's some changes that have come down. I know there are a few coaches on the call tonight and there are a few players on the call, but nearly not enough. We've probably got a couple of hundred front row players in Texas, and we need to share this knowledge with them before we start running around free kicking them, because they get a little bit grumpy with the referee. So pretty straightforward. The secondary signal is simply you're going to lift your knee up and tap your foot. That's the secondary signal. I forgot to put it on here, but basically you're going to do the Captain Morgan and Captain Morgan rum stance for those who know that. Leg goes up, give it a bit of a tap. I wouldn't do a kicking motion because that's a little bit more like foul play, a kick to the player. So do your Captain Morgan, engage your core, squeeze your glute and bring that leg up nice and proud. And again, here's our third best referee.
Está pasando en el caso de las dos defensas lo mismo. Los ataques están teniendo facilidades para agrupar gente y encontrar espacios por afuera. Quizá el que dé un paso al frente en la...
So pretty straightforward there. That was Kurt Weaver free kicking Uruguay for not striking the ball. We've allowed this, and it's been going on for quite some time, especially at the top level of the game. Usually you'll see this when a scrum is under pressure. The number 8 is going to put his hand right into the middle of the scrum and pull the ball out. And so we've just basically changed the law to reflect what's happening on the field, basically. So it says that we can allow the number 8 to pick the ball up from the feet of the second rows. You know, if he puts his hand up and pulls the ball from the 9's hand, that's probably taking it a little bit too far. I definitely want to get too pedantic about whether it's at the second row's feet or it's at their, you know, their knees or it's at the foot of the hooker or however. I'd be more concerned about making sure he doesn't knock it on as he pulls it from the scrum. But anyway, handling in the scrum, Law 20.9b for those who are law experts. We're going to allow the 8-man to pick the ball up from the feet of the second row. Right, pretty straightforward there. Look, I just want to work back to a question and clarify an answer I gave about the tackler. I believe my my answer may have been incorrect, so I just want to go back. And Joey asked a question about the tackler. He's made the tackle, he gets up, comes back through the tackle zone, then plays the ball from his side. So I said that sounds fine to me. I was incorrect. The tackler must roll east-west and come back around and enter in through the gate and not enter back through the tackle zone. Okay, so just to clear that up, hopefully, hopefully I've cleared that up. So if we have a tackle, the tackler ends up on the defending side or the opposite side. He gets up. He cannot enter back through that tackle zone. He must go around the side and come back in through the gate. So he leaves the tackle, he comes back around the side, enters in through the gate. And at which time, if he does that and there's no one else around, then he can pick the ball up, etc., etc. So just to clarify, I was mistaken earlier, so apologies. Apologies for that if I confused you all. And just again, one more time. Good old 8, picks the ball up. There you go, pretty straightforward. Law 22 is in goal. We've basically covered this with our Law 19. And so we'll go over this pretty quick. Basically says a player with one or both feet on or behind the goal line picks up the ball from within the field of play or catches the ball in front of the goal line. That player has taken possession of the ball in the field of play. Same principle as a touch, same principle as a 22, same principle as the goal line. It has to be past that plane of the goal line for it to be considered in goal. Otherwise, that player's taking it back in, and that would be, for us, the difference between a scrum up from where the kick was, a 22 or a 5-metre scrum. So it's very important for us as referees that we get this one right, because the difference between a 22 or a scrum up and a 5-metre attacking scrum is a huge call to make, and if we get it wrong, we will be getting some feedback free of charge from the players. So we want to get this one right. So let's have a watch.
For lovely footwork there. It's put a lot into the kick, but it holds up nicely. Not nice enough from an England.
So we'll take that back.
A lot into the kick, but it holds up nicely.
So right there. So this is basically what it's all about. That ball is still outside the plane of the in-goal, the goal line. Earlier in the year, if I put my foot back over in goal and I picked the ball up, it was still moving. It was put in by the attacking team. Now we're changing it. So right there, still not in goal. He's going to pick it up, take it back in goal.
Not.
So now that would be a 5 metre attacking scrum. So again, it's a big call if we get it wrong. So if I'm the referee, I am running very fast until I get all the way here, and I'm not slowing up at the 22, like Cole Jones does quite a lot, apparently. We'll play that again, eh?
Ford, lovely footwork there. It's put a lot into the kick, but it holds up nicely. Not nice enough from an England point of view.
Oh, look, they slow it down for us. That's so nice. Defending player in goal. If a player with one or both feet behind the dead ball line picks up or catches a ball that has not reached the dead ball line or touching the goal line, the player is deemed to have made the ball dead. Touching goal line, yes. So it's the same as the goal line. This is just for the dead ball line, and pretty straightforward now. I think we've all sort of understand what's happening here.
Otago, 2 metres out. Lead. The kick out long is for Adam Knight. Oh, whoa, what has happened here? Fine. They're going to have a look. Did he stay in? I think he's...
It's not really the correct clip for this scenario, so we'll just move past it.
Team Mum now here's Ghetto, change of tactics. Sure what this is going to achieve though. Simply end up with a scrum way back. Very poor kick indeed by Matt Ghetto. This will give the All Blacks a scrum right back near halfway. In fact,
so this is still a scrum up, this situation. Just wanted to show you that. So that's still a scrum up. Ball went dead.
Steading. Got the crowd out of the mind. Here's a Bendenon. A lot of space there. Jackson's got to cover it. That's on his bike. It's got a good roll on it.
Yeah, we got an idea.
Walsh's point of view. Has he got enough?
And here we go.
Choice.
It's all the way back. Referee Wayne
That
Barnes.
now has changed. And that
Fitness
player
himself to get there
would
to
have
make
been
sure
to have taken
was
that
able to
ball,
make the right decision.
made that ball
Jackson
dead,
going
and his options, instead of having the scrum up option that he had last year, because the ball was still moving, now we would just have the 22 drop. So there's your change there. There's no scrum up option. It would just be a 22, because obviously the attacking team put the ball in to in goal, and then Red made it dead. 22 is your option and no scrum up. I'm sure we're having lots of great conversations with our 15s this year about this change as they scream and point to the scrum up option that no longer applies. Can't wait. Okay, so we'll start to wrap this up. Some points to keep in mind. You know, first of all, most of our matches don't have assistant referees assigned, so you know it's going to be tough out there for us. If we can get some player ARs to help us out, I would assume that if you explain to them it's a lot like basketball, they might understand that. Maybe it's a good idea to practice what you would say to these player ARs before you get to the pitch, so you're nice and clear and concise, and you can deliver a good message to them. So yeah, it's going to be tough there. It's important for your referees, especially with no ARs, put themselves in a good position. We've already talked about that. You know, it's just about working hard at the right times in the game so we can see, you know, the playing of the goal line or the 22 as best as possible. You know, the way I would ask you to referee this would be the advantage goes to the team receiving the ball. So if it's a 50-50 call and you can't clearly see whether it's in or out of the 22, I'm going to assume that the attacking team was trying to kick the ball down there. Therefore, it would be inside the 22. No use us guessing. We don't want to be out there guessing and making these calls that affect the outcome of a game. So that's how I would ask you to adjudicate this. If you're unsure, give the advantage to the team that's just got possession of the ball. Talk to the teams in your pre-game preps. Talk to the touch judges. Just like basketball, as I said, and we've already talked about this, decisions at the goal line have huge consequences on the game. If we get them wrong, we're looking at getting some really strong feedback from the players. So, 8 players in the scrum. We've been over this. Sorry, this is from the earlier slide, so we can just blast through this. Again, worldrugby.org/news. Go there, use that site. It's really good. And just to let you guys know out there, guys and girls, our regional training meetings coming up next week. Players, coaches, parents, spectators, we're all welcome. We will use these meetings to go over in more detail the trial laws this week that we talked about tonight, and do some sort of demo work, etc., etc. So if you can make them, get out and get your learning on. And of course, referees. We have the coaching of match officials. That's coming out September 9th. The location has been changed to Austin. Check out our Facebook page for updated flyers. Obviously, Houston's still underwater, so we've moved the summit up to Austin. If you're available, if you're free on that weekend, please consider signing up for this course. We really need help with our match officials, our coaches. We're pushing to get a lot more referees. We need help coaching them. So do your part. Come to the course. It's a fun course, quite insightful for not only referees, also for rugby coaches. You can apply what you learn in this class onto your players as well. So if you're free, sign up and do your part. So I'm going to have a look, see if there's any questions, and see if I can answer those for you. Thanks for attending. It's been awesome. I hope you learnt a lot. And as I said, all this will be available on our website within the week for you to go over. The video clips, the webinar will be in PDF form, and the game management guidelines are already handed out, but there'll be a link there for those as well. Okay, right. I'm going to hit some questions. So if you have some questions, chuck them in now. I'll do my best to answer them for you. So, Carl, regarding one player needed to form a ruck. If the tackle gets to his feet and enters the gate legally and is standing over the ball but does not attempt a jackal, is the ball now considered to be in the tackling team's possession? In the ruck, since the tackled player will be required to release. Okay, so we're saying that we have a tackler and we have a ball carrier. They're on the ground, and the jackal from the defending team standing over the ball. The team in possession would be the ball carrying team still. Now, once the jackal arrives there, if he doesn't attempt to play the ball immediately, we're going to say that a ruck has formed. So the defending team, if they want to have a go at gain possession, it must happen immediately. And if they're over that ball and they don't go try to gain possession, we will consider that a ruck. And of course, once another player arrives from the attacking team, it's like the classic ruck that we were refereeing last year anyway. So hopefully that clarifies that question for you. If not, just send me some question marks or come out to our meeting up in Dallas. I believe he's from Dallas. Anyway, okay, Joey. You know, I don't have an answer. Joey's asked, what's the reasoning behind the 9 putting the ball in without the signal, with our signal, the referee signal? The stability of the scrum is now determined by the 9 instead of the referee. No question mark. So the reasoning behind it, I do not have an answer to that, Joey, to be honest. So I will definitely look into that and try to come up with the correct answer for you. This is the stability of the scrum. It's still up to the referee to determine whether or not we believe that scrum is stable. So for me, the word stable means it's not moving. So if the 9 puts the ball in when the scrum is still moving and has not settled down, he's liable to be free kicked. So I would, if it's the first scrum of the match, I would blow the whistle and have a reset, talk to the 9, ask him to wait for the scrum to settle. If he continues to put the ball in while it's moving, there's not a whole lot more we can do apart from free kick him, and then hopefully he will understand what our standard is. So, yes, the loose head, Alexandra. The loose head can strike. Any player in the front row can strike, and a player from the team who is putting the ball in must strike. So, yes, the loose head can strike for the ball now. And he's asked, and what about the non-feeding team tight head? Any player in the front row can now strike for the ball. So, yeah, technically we can have 6 guys striking at the ball, which would be quite interesting to see. Dan, that was a good question from Joey. I'm not too sure what question he was referring to. But, you know, I will agree. Joey has some good questions. Tim O'Gara replies to Joey, says that now makes Joey the best ref in the US because of that question. I think I'd give that to him. That's fair enough. And I have one more question from the Alexandra, who's come to Austin from Australia, a new referee. In reference to why there is no verbal put in, I believe that was changed to give more advantage to the attacking team. Whereby the half can tap the hooker and feed, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, so basically that makes sense. So what Alexandra's saying is that it's giving a bit more advantage to the team that is feeding the ball, because they can sort of do it on their own timing when they're ready, rather than having the referee, you know, determine when to feed it. So I like that answer. It sounds logical to me, so that's the answer I'm going for. Alexandra, you get the free T-shirt. It is extra small, so, you know, you got to live with that. Right. Any more questions? I think we've covered most of it. As I said, have a look out on our webpage. This will all be up for you guys to review at your leisure. Get on out to our regional meetings. If you have a friend who wants to, you know, give refereeing a go, we have a course on September 9th. Please, please, please do your part to fill that course up. We need referees to keep this game growing. Thank you so much for coming out, everyone. And if I have no more questions, I will simply call it a night with some great music. Thank you, everyone.